What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today, we're going to be reacting to Crime in Britain. Are things getting worse? You know, when I came across this video, the title definitely grabbed my attention because I'm under the impression that the UK is a very safe country with a very low crime rate per capita, except for a few main specific areas such as within London and other large cities such as Manchester. You know, I know you guys have a bit of knife crime in certain parts of the country, but I feel like if I came over to the UK, I'd feel perfectly safe pretty much anywhere I went. But this title has definitely gotten me curious on what's happening. And is the crime rate really increasing, and what types of crimes are increasing? You know, I've really been interested in learning about British policing, the criminal justice system, prisons, and all sorts of things that have to do with crime within the UK. And I think this video is going to be interesting because we might actually see some good crime stats for different types of crimes to kind of give us a better idea of what may be going on in terms of crime within Britain. So anyways, guys, enough of my rambling. Let's go ahead and check out Crime in Britain. Are things getting worse?
In a democratic, civilized society, the police exist to enforce law and order. While politicians create, amend and scrap laws, it's the job of the police to make sure that people actually follow them and catch those that don't. However, some have argued that in the last few years, the police in the UK have started to fail in this regard, with action not being taken on crimes ranging from bike theft all the way up to serious sexual offences. It's important when discussing topics like this to have a good look at what's actually going on. So in this video, we're going to take a look through Home Office data in England and Wales and see whether crime outcomes are indeed getting worse.
Oh, this should be interesting. You know, I can't speak for the UK, but I can definitely say in the US, over the last number of years, crime has gotten pretty bad, specifically in some of our larger cities, such as New York, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. And a big reason for that is the prosecutors in these larger cities simply are not doing their job. And in some regards, the police are also not enforcing the law either. You know, for example, in I think it's San Francisco, up to a certain amount of money, these people are not getting prosecuted for stealing. So you'll see stores like, I believe it's Target, which is a store like Walmart, if you're not familiar. They sell a large amount of different things. But they've actually placed everything behind lot glass cabinets. And if you just want something like some shampoo or deodorant in that store, in that city, you literally have to ask customer service representative to grab you, you know, to go unlock the container for you so you can get what you're trying to get, because they've had so many people steal small amounts at a time and they're not getting prosecuted. And it's just you can imagine how much money that's costing that store. We also have a lot of issues in a lot of these cities with drug crimes not being prosecuted. And so there's these large homeless encampments all over the city that you'll see people just using, you know, all sorts of bad drugs like fentanyl, meth, heroin on the side of the street, right where families and children are walking down the street. They'll have their tents set up. And I'm the first person to speak up for homeless people. You know, I think we need to help our homeless, but we shouldn't be allowing these people who are doing drugs and then they're having to go and steal to feed their drug habit. They shouldn't be able to be sitting there on the side of our streets, you know, where families and little children are just walking past, seeing these people shooting heroin into their arms. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's not helping anybody. You know what I mean? But that's what's happening in a lot of these areas in America. And I'm saying this because I'm not sure where this is going with, you know, what we're going to see from these stats, but I'm kind of curious. In some areas in the UK, you guys are having some of the same issues. But anyways, guys, let's go ahead and continue.
One of the main reasons this story has been in the news lately is a rather shocking video from a few weeks ago in which bike thieves were spotted using an angle grinder to unlock a bike from behind a bike shed.
Why is no one stopping them? Really? You're not going to stop them? I mean, at least go. I mean, it's obviously they're up to no good, man. There's no doubt in my mind. And at the very least, you question them, right? Like no one's going to question them, like literally unlocking. With a saw. I mean, come on. Yeah.
At the time, it was reported that the Metropolitan Police were not looking into the incident. This started a conversation about how the police treat low-level crime like bike theft, with the Labour councillor stating that he had 2 cargo bikes stolen, which was recorded in high-definition CCTV. He said that the Met had taken no action in both cases. Following this saga, The Times published an article looking into how the police deal with low-level crimes. Alongside anecdotal evidence, they also looked through different types of crime and how different police forces dealt with them. For example, in Thames Valley, there were 340 cases of blackmail in the 3 months up to September last year. No one was charged. There were 391 non-life-threatening arson reports in Gwent. No one was charged. There were 66 attempted burglaries in Warwickshire. No one was charged.
Wow.
There were 288 cases of pickpockets in Hampshire. No one was charged. And finally, there was a huge 751 reports of bike theft in Hampshire. Again, no one was charged.
Wait, so what I'm curious on are all these numbers of these different crimes, have they actually found the suspect? You know, the people who actually did the crime and then did not charge them? Or are they saying that, for example, out of these 751 reports of bike theft, not a single one of the individuals that stole the bikes were ever found? You know, so I think there's a difference here between, you know, if you find these individuals and not charge them versus you never found them and it's reported as no charge. You get what I'm saying? It's a completely different thing. So I'd be curious to know a little more detail about those numbers. But that's a lot of, for example, this is a lot of bike theft in one area for not a single one of them to be caught. And if they have been caught and they're not charged with that, that's pretty messed up, man. That's someone's possession. You know what I mean?
In fact, when they looked at a number of charges made nationwide on various crimes since 2015, we see that things are definitely getting worse. There's been a huge 30-point drop in the stalking charge rate and a 24-point drop in the harassment charge rate.
Whoa.
Currently, the charge rate for cannabis possession is higher than stalking, assault with injury, public fear, alarm or distress, residential burglary, and bike theft. This is
cannabis possession over all these other things, stalking, assault. Come on, man. That's a big deal based off the numbers. He's going to go into more detail, I'm guessing, but like, okay.
Bike theft. This is why The Times went on to question whether the police has given up on low-level crime. So we're going to look into this a bit deeper by going through the police outcome data produced by the Home Office. We're also going to start looking at the charge rate more generally and see how this has changed since 2015. Then we're going to have a look at different types of crime and compare what the outcomes are now and what they used to be. We'll finish up by looking at why outcomes are the way they are and whether this government has had a role in all of this. So let's start with crime outcomes over time. Since 2015, the number of cases where police claim there were evidential difficulties has increased hugely, from just under 10% in 2015 to just over 25% in 2020.
Evidential difficulties, victim does not support action. Okay, so basically this means that it's harder. The police are saying this is harder to have the evidence to convict someone. That is a huge increase in 7 years. I mean, 15% increase in 7 years? Okay.
22. Similarly, there's been a gradual decline in the number of cases where the individual has been charged or summoned since 2015, from just under 20% to just under 10%. And when we start digging down and looking at specific crimes, we notice that some crimes have had worse outcomes than others. Now, it should be noted that for some crimes this makes sense. For example, on offences, investigations tend to take longer, and therefore there will be a higher proportion of cases without an outcome at the end of the year than other types of crime.
Yeah.
Anyway, as it turns out, the offence group that results in the highest number of complete investigations without any suspects identified is thefts. Drug offences result in the highest number of people being charged and summoned, which is contrasted to sexual offences, which have the least. Over the last few years, the charge rate for offences has remained low at between 3 and 4%.
Wait, what?
Last year, though, this had dropped even further to only 2.9%. For specifically, this is only 1.3%. Other offences like robbery had a conviction rate of 6.3%. Theft had a conviction rate of 4.1%.
What?
As the Times data shows, this is a huge decrease from 2015.
Am I understanding this correctly? Out of all of these specific crimes, this is the number that actually had a charge rate, or he said conviction, but it says charge here. But like either way, I mean, we're talking, what is that? Like, well, 1.3 out of 100 people, or easier way to say that would be 13 out of 1,000 cases. That's insane. That's insane, man.
Dean. When we look at time to assign an outcome, we see that there are also a number of different takeaways. For some crime, the time taken has decreased, and for others, it's increased. Offences saw the steepest decrease in time taken for an outcome to be decided, with a drop of 7 days between 2021 and 2022. However, it still remains very high at around 62 days. Specifically has a much higher time to reach an outcome, at 94 days, although this has dropped 3 days. The average of all crimes is 12 days, and this has increased by 1 day between 2021 and 2022. This is largely because many other offences saw an increase in the time taken to reach an outcome, with drug offences increasing 3 days, violence against the person increasing 3 days, and robbery increasing by 4 days. So it seems that things broadly have gotten worse recently, with fewer convictions for many crimes and, excluding offences, it taking longer for an outcome to be decided by the police. But why might this be? Well, it's clear that police numbers have declined since 2010. While a number of police officers have been taken on in recent years, they barely replaced those lost in the early 2010s. The first time...
Why is this? Like, you went from, let's see, 2010 to... You went almost an entire decade. Well, yeah, I mean, basically, you went almost an entire decade where every year you lost a bunch of police officers. That's what this is, change in officer numbers, yeah. What was happening through here to lose so many officers, and all of a sudden now you're starting to gradually get a decent number of officers again?
Police numbers went up since 2010 was actually in 2019. And as the data mentioned throughout this video compares 2022 to 2015, it's understandable why things have gotten worse. It should go without saying that with fewer police officers, it's naturally harder and takes longer to secure convictions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alongside this, Dr. Rick Muir, the director of the Police Federation think tank, argues that as police have begun to focus on more complex and higher harm offences, the less harmful and more straightforward crimes get less attention. This may be why, for example, the time taken for assault cases to be concluded has dropped, whereas many other crimes have taken longer. Additionally, he argues that police are recording a much higher proportion of crime than they used to, although it is worth noting that the number of reported crimes is 75% lower than it was back in 1993.
That's interesting.
It seems then that there may be a number of reasons why convictions for a lot of crime has fallen, but it's hard to argue that the drop in police numbers since 2010 has helped. All in all, it does seem like the situation regarding crime, and specifically convictions, has gotten worse in the last few years, in a lot of different cases. Undoubtedly, this will be a big topic for politicians when the UK heads into the next general election. And it's too early to say which of the parties will win the argument on crime and punishment.
Guys, this is crazy, man. Like, those numbers are, obviously not good. But, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's not just in the UK. We've experienced the same thing in a lot of cities. And, I'd have to look at the amount of police officers, but I do know a lot of police officers have left a lot of those cities. So that could be a reason. That's a very good reason. I mean, you have less police officers, you have less people to follow each individual crime, and so sometimes they get overwhelmed and have to, they have to put priority on the crimes that are more serious. This is interesting. What do you think, guys? Do you feel like you've noticed an increase of crime in whatever area you live in? Please let me know in the comments. But thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.